Fishies. Welcome back to another vlog. This is Heartcatch Pretty Cure, episodes 7 and 15. This is a commissioned vlog by Bennett Jackson. So basically, at his request, I'm taking a break from Dirty Pair in order to, having finished the original series. I know there's lots of other Dirty Pair stuff out there, but he requested that after finishing the original series, I take a break and do a specific arc of Heartcatch Pretty Cure. Now, I've not actually seen Heartcatch Pretty Cure, so I'm coming into this arc not knowing, really, the rest of the show, but it's a magical girl anime, so I pretty quickly caught on. You've got Pretty Blossom and Pretty Marine, or Precure Blossom, Precure Marine, something like that. Anyway, Blossom and Marine, and they're the magical girls, and they're fighting a group of villains who use people's buried negative feelings to turn them into monsters. I mean, it's every magical girl anime ever, with very few exceptions. Which honestly is something that I haven't seen a lot of writing about. I've seen a lot of stuff about the magical girl herself and her transformation. There's the whole idea of accelerated maturation. Lots of stuff about weaponized femininity and Japanese ideals of femininity. I think I've never really seen anybody talk about magical girl villains and monsters and the whole idea of buried feelings coming out, which is kind of a recurring thing. Anyway, these two episodes, and I'm assuming the whole arc, concern the student council president, who is a girl whose name I'm blanking on. Hiroko, maybe? No. That was the boy in the second episode, I think. Okay, anyway, the student council president, she presents extremely masculine to the point that initially Blossom has... I can't remember their names, I'm sorry, so I'm just going to go with Blossom and Marine. Initially, Blossom has a crush on what she thinks is a very manly little boy. And, of course, it turns out that she's a girl, and she secretly likes all kinds of more stereotypically feminine things, but is afraid of being mocked for that because she's created this very masculine persona for herself, and also because she thinks that she has to maintain this persona in order to be a martial artist, which her, as is explained in the second episode, her grandfather is the master of a martial arts dojo, and it's got, a storied history passed down, father to eldest son. Her mother is an only child, so there was no son to inherit, and the student council president's older brother is too sickly, so she volunteered to do it, which is interesting. She's not being forced by her family to do this. She volunteered to do it out of a sense of duty. Nobody told her to. And indeed, when it becomes clear, I think what's going on with her grandfather in the second episode, I'm kind of jumping around a bit, I know. That's because I'm treating this as more a character study than a story thing, as what they are wanting me to look at. Her grandfather in the second episode outright says, you're going to take a break from martial arts for a while because you need to explore your true self. Her family is very supportive of that. There's a lot of different ways to read this. One, perhaps less charitable way to read it is one that takes at face value. This is a girl who was assigned female at birth. She is, her choice to present as masculine is thus being ultimately policed. The show is saying that it can't be done, and she needs to, accept that she will inevitably have this love and desire for girly things, because that is an innate girl property that has nothing to do with culture. It's something very gender essentialist. Which, honestly, in isolation from the rest of the series, which again I have not seen, so I don't know, that's kind of what I tend to expect from an anime. There are exceptions, more now than there used to be. But by and large, Utena notwithstanding, anime has never been hugely progressive in its presentation of gender. Magical girls are great from a Western perspective, an American perspective. It's like awesome. We get girls battling evil, and we get them using, femininity to do it without feminine stuff being presented as less than, and that's great and that's true. But within the context of the originating culture, they're deeply problematic in a lot of ways that Americans generally don't recognize. And I'm not going to comment any further on that because that's not for me to comment on. I recommend going out and checking out some of the commentaries by Japanese people and by, actual experts on Japanese culture. It's out there, trust me. That said, that's one way to look at it. One way that really doesn't work is that this is someone who was AFAB and is presenting as male and is therefore readable as a trans man. I don't think that works. And the reason I don't think that works is because of the fact that they repeatedly present that she thinks of herself as a girl. She is trying, what she's trying to suppress is a desire for a more feminine presentation. And what she's afraid of. That to me does not suggest a trans man. Quite the opposite. So, though that gets, so the last reading, which is the most charitable one, the most charitable, supportable one, I think. Although I don't think it's that strong, really, is that she is trans and struggling with it. That she was assigned male at birth, and she does all this masculine stuff, martial arts stuff, and so on because she feels she has to, even though nobody ever directly told her she did. And that recalls a lot of my own life. As you may or may not know, depending on whether you follow me outside of YouTube and which videos you watch and so on, I came out as trans very quickly after realizing I was trans. Which means for the first 36 and change years of my life, I didn't realize I was trans. The question naturally arises, so was I? Is it possible to be trans and not know it? On some level? Probably. I would say almost definitely. I think I was definitely trans before I realized I was trans. The question is, was I trans from the moment of birth on? And that I can't really answer. I don't know. Um, I do know that there's things I can recall going back years. Um, I've previously said like 11, but actually, of all things, watching She-Ra made me realize there's stuff going back to when I was like 5 or 6 that I can point to and be like, okay, that was baby trans feelings. Um, so anyway, um, there's there's the thing is, part of those feelings, I remember, and that's actually what I wanted to address is, the She-Ra thing is what I remembered watching the new She-Ra very vividly, suddenly, something I had forgotten, was watching the old She-Ra as a kid and feeling like I had to fake it, pretend not to like it, because it was more feminine, and I needed to suppress and hide that side of me. I knew that instinctively, that, even at that young age, I had already internalized boys are one way and girls are another, and I knew I wasn't the way boys are. And that made me feel, rather than the perfectly normal girl I was, it made me feel like a freakish or broken boy. And so I hid it out of shame. And that's exactly what student council president is going through. But that reading is complicated by the fact that everybody around her knows and accepts her as a girl. So why is she still trying to present masculine as much as she can? Why does she feel that that's necessary in order to run the martial arts thing? It's, again, I think the most plausible reason is the first one I gave, but that's not the most interesting reading. The most plausible reading is the first one I gave, but that's not the most plausible reading. I can't speak. The most plausible reading is that she's a cis girl whose innate cis girlness is enforcing itself over her attempts to be masculine. She's a very gender essentialist, borderline transphobic thing. Or that's the most plausible reading, but the most interesting is that she's a trans girl. And it calls to some underlying disagreement within the trans community of what comprises a trans person. I tend toward a very inclusive definition, which is anybody who wants to. Cis people don't want to be trans. If trans is a desire. It is a desire for gender expression that matches one's gender identity and is different from one's assigned gender. Cis people never feel that desire because they were assigned the correct gender at birth, and so that's the gender they are, and the gender they present as, and the only gender they want to be. For a trans person, that's not what you want to be. So that's kind of how I define it. Other people tend to define it in ways that are better grounded in gender theory, because gender is performative. It's not really something that's innate, it's something you're taught. But I think that elides the underlying nature of transness. So within that tension, we find the two different readings. In, the gender for student council president, the gender everybody reads them as, like the gender everybody says they are, is female, but they present as male. So if we go on this strictly gender as performance viewpoint, that sounds like a depiction of a trans man. But I really don't think that works here. Because there is that strong underlying desire to be more feminine and to present in feminine ways and to be a girl, and it manifests in these, superficial things. People who, don't understand, either out of ignorance or because they don't want to, because they're assholes, people who don't understand being trans, will say things like, wanting to wear dresses or wearing dresses doesn't make you a woman. No, it doesn't. Drag queens put on dresses all the time. They're still men. It's not, putting on a dress doesn't make me a woman. It tells you that I'm a woman. It's a way of signaling that, of expressing that. And that's the thing, is the president's feeling this need, this desire to express herself as a girl, as opposed to feeling she has a duty to express herself in as a boy. So to me, that reads more as a trans girl. But again, everything is complicated by the fact that everyone around her reads her as and totally accepts her as a girl, which then makes her buried feelings. The issue is not, if she were a trans girl who were accepted as a trans girl, great. That's awesome. The problem is the episode presents her as presenting one way, being known as something else by everyone around her, being, she presents male, everyone around her reads her as female, and her underlying desire is female. That basically is saying, you're wrong and everyone around you is right, which is just inherently any marginalized identity that's shitting on them. So, yeah, the charitable reading is badly weakened by that. Still, it's a cute show. There's still 2 more episodes to this arc. I'm curious to see what they do with it. But yeah, I think that's about it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, let's plays, essays, and more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!